Every single home has mold. So if somebody comes into your house and tells you have no mold, then they don't know what they're doing. What you really need to understand is that there are always going to be sources. It's about prioritizing source in the home. And so there are going to be things that should be treated as a 5 alarm, urgent, urgent, urgent. And then there are going to be things that, hey, look, this is kind of normal. This is settlement. This is part of the acclimate of the home. You don't need to worry about it. But we don't drink unfiltered water.
Right.
And our homes are systems, right? And there's always something in its closed air that's looping. So bringing in air filtration is important too, making sure that it's a minimum HEPA filter base.
Welcome to the Inspired Living with Autoimmunity podcast, the podcast for high achievers who want to stay sharp, focused, and full of energy despite their diagnosis. With your host, National Board Certified Functional Medicine Health Coach, Julie Michelson, where Julie helps you take your power back from autoimmunity. And now here's your host, Julie Michelson.
Welcome back to the Inspired Living with Autoimmunity podcast. I'm your host, Julie Michelson, and today I'm joined by Corey Levy, co-founder of We Inspect and the Dust Test. With certifications as a microbial investigator and indoor environmentalist, Corey specializes in indoor air quality. Licensed as a mold assessor in Florida and New York, he is also a WELL accredited professional focusing on health and wellness in building designs. With over 2,000 mold investigations, Corey's expertise benefits individuals with hypersensitive health issues. He actively participates in international conferences, enhancing his knowledge on conditions like SIRS, Lyme disease, and more, emphasizing a commitment to heal through environmental quality. In today's conversation, we're talking all about mold as an underlying issue driving health challenges. And Corey shares his knowledge and expertise about improving air quality, reliable mold testing, and steps we can all take to protect ourselves. Corey busts the myth of a one-size-fits-all, burn-it-all-down approach and provides impactful resources and tips to help us all live healthier, no matter where we are in our journey. Corey, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Julie. I'm so excited to be here.
I am so excited for our conversation. I had to just kind of cut myself off because I wanted to have the conversation before we have the conversation.
Yeah.
So I'm always fascinated by people's stories anyway, but especially when it's something that to me is like so specialized. So how did you get into the world of wellness, or of mold and wellness together?
Yeah.
Like, because that's not something usually little boys are like, ooh, this is what I want to do.
No, they're not. I think at some point I wanted to be a firefighter, but that went away really fast. And then, growing up, like a lot of boys, you kind of idolize your dad a little bit.
Yes.
And so that was part of my journey too. My dad actually was a trailblazer in the indoor air quality space. So he started our first location back in 2003 on the East Coast where I grew up. And a big driver for him was actually my brother. My brother had really bad asthma, really bad eczema as a kid. And when my dad left the telecom world, he had a friend who was actually on the other side of the business from where I'm at. He was on the remediation side.
Okay.
And so he started to do inspections. He started to do, kind of follow him and started this business. And then I kind of joke around and say, since I'm a second generation indoor air quality expert, that really means that I've been in crawl spaces since I was around 17 years old.
Which sounds like it could be not so healthy. So I'm guessing you did it the right way.
I did. Yeah. And that's the one thing about what my family, how we got kind of more towards the wellness side. It's initially when Steve, my dad, started the business, he kind of started on what I would consider to be more generic type of mold inspections. You're buying a house, you had a leak in a specific area that you wanted looked at. But there was a client that we had that was sick, and actually asked us, hey, do you know any doctors that I can speak with? And unfortunately, at that time, we didn't.
Sure.
And so we took it upon ourselves to go out and find doctors. And the first conference we went to was actually the American Academy of Environmental Medicine. At that time, 15, 16 years ago, some years ago, it was really the only one of its kind. And we showed up, and there was probably 300 some odd doctors there. We were the only environmental consultants in the room. It was my
Wow.
dad, my uncle,
Smart move.
and myself. Yeah, right. And
Yeah.
let me tell you something, I understood zero of what they were talking about.
Sure.
But we learned so much, and we ended up making great connections with some practitioners who really helped shape us and explain to us, hey, we've been looking for people in the indoor air quality space to help find what we're seeing in our patients' bodies. And so we started our journey back then of learning and actually sitting down with doctors, and the doctor saying, hey, this is what I'm seeing. Here are their mycotoxins. Where is this coming from?
Right.
Can you help us? And so as we dove into it more and more, we've really refined ourselves into essentially now where we're, a national company. We work throughout the US in most places. And our through line is that everybody we work with is dealing with health concerns. So
Sure.
Either
Whether they know it
directly,
or not.
right, yeah, either it's directly the home,
Yeah.
or they're dealing with an underlying health condition, which I think a lot of the people in your audience that listen to this show are dealing with. They're diagnosed with something, but why am I not pushing through?
Right.
What is happening?
Yeah. I love
Yeah.
that you say that, because we tend to forget, especially with the Western medicine model we live in, right? Live with right now, that the body is designed to heal. And so, the when you get a diagnosis, or even if you don't have one and you're struggling, it's the why is where the answer is. Why isn't the body able to handle this on its own? And so often, mycotoxins are at least an underlying factor,
Sure.
in especially in the autoimmune
Oh
space.
yeah.
And it is. I love that you said you're nationwide. When I moved to Colorado, from South Florida, where we were aware, mold was everywhere. The first home we almost bought in Colorado, we wanted to do a mold inspection because it was a stucco home. And they, oh, there's no mold in Colorado. It's so dry here. Well, it was like, well, if you want to sell us the home, we're gonna check. And sure enough, it had mold, and we moved on. Now, 20 something years later, it has, especially, Boulder flooded years ago. Like,
Oh yeah.
we're now a little more savvy in Colorado than we used to be, as far as it is everywhere.
It's everywhere. It's everywhere.
And
I'm glad you brought that up too, because I think a lot of our initial thought process is exactly this. It's like, oh, well, I live in Florida, so I'm bound to have it. Or, oh, I'm in Tucson, Arizona, where it's
Right.
super dry. I'm in the desert. There's no way it's here, right?
Yeah.
And I think the environmental impact plays a role in how the structure is going to form mold, for sure, but also unpack how we build, right?
Yeah.
And how we maintain. And I think that is something that's completely being missed in this conversation of, yeah, so you're in the desert, you may not get as much humidity, you may not get rain that could impact, but
Right.
you have plumbing,
You have pipes.
you have pipes, right? You have HVAC systems that you run year round.
Yeah.
You have the makings for other things. And I remember this so vividly when I was younger, before my dad was in the industry, and we had a small leak underneath the sink. And it ended up becoming part of a problem that we found in the house that could have been impacting my brother. And when it happened, we just let it dry.
Sure.
Right. And then years later, my dad found there was an issue there. But I think so many people think, oh, well, if I stop the leak underneath the sink, I've solved the problem.
Right.
What's crazy, Julie, in what we do, the majority of the issues that we find in people's houses are actually related to previous water damage.
Yeah. Say
And
that again, because that's so important for people to understand.
yeah, so the majority of the issues that we find in people's houses are actually related to previous water damage. There's this theory that moisture's gone, mold is gone. It's like this mold is this just kind of evaporation, right? That they go hand in hand.
Right.
But unfortunately, they don't. So the best way to think about this, if you guys can all imagine like a tree, right? And if you stop watering the tree outside, it's not like once it's dry and you walk by and you're like, oh, the tree's gone. That's great, right? I don't have to hire a tree removal service.
Right.
Unfortunately, that's not how this works. The tree starts to shed its leaves, and those leaves get super dry and brittle, and they actually break up into smaller pieces, right? And then decades and decades go down where that tree just sits there before eventually maybe a storm knocks it over and then it starts to rot out, right? In your home, when you have a water event, mold grows as quickly as 24 to 48 hours or 7 to 10 days, depending on the type of species. But after that water stopped and even the building material is dry, the colony remains. And then it goes to a very similar cycle, Julie, where it gets dry. So it aerosolizes easier, it fragments easier, it gets into the body easier, right?
And I want to talk about you're an air quality specialist, right? Like we tend to think of mold as, oh my gosh, it's really, I think what people think of is mildew, right? Like they think
Yes.
of this dark stuff they see and don't realize. So I want to talk about the importance of it. It's the spores in the air that are making you sick. It's not what's sitting under the sink. If it was just going to stay there contained, fine.
Oh, I'm so happy you said that, because otherwise I wouldn't even have a job, right? Because if mold just stayed there, then we wouldn't even be talking right now, Julie.
Right.
But mold produces byproducts, right? And ultimately that moves through the environment and through the air. And then what happens is this stuff actually settles out into our dust, right? And so air is always changing, always moving. So you may have air quality that shifts throughout the day, depending on temperature, humidity, occupancy, time of day. The air quality is always going to be different. But if you could imagine, did you ever watch Snoopy as a kid?
Of course.
Okay. Do you remember
all the
Pigpen,
holidays?
Yeah, my mom was obsessed with it when we were growing up. Do you remember Pigpen, the little dirty kid that walked with the cloud around him?
We have a chicken that reminds us of Pigpen. Yes, I do. She just always looks dirty.
She always looks dirty. Well, so the idea of Pigpen is actually similar to what happens when we walk around, even after we shower, right, and are clean, because we're re-aerosolizing everything as we move. And these spores, these fragments of spores, these toxins that get into our home, they re-aerosolize. So when you sit down on a couch or you pick up papers off of a desk, you're re-breathing all of that in. So even after these particles settle out, you're reintroducing to your breathing zone consistently. That's why it's really important to make sure that you're keeping dust down and decluttering and all these things, because that's going to help just from an easy perspective of limiting your exposure in your house.
I'm so glad that you said that. And I can never now think of myself as Pigpen now. Thanks for that visual.
Sorry about that.
No, it's so important. And this is why, and I want to steer it back, but I'm in the rabbit hole now. I'm going to say this and then we're going to go backwards. But this is why I literally almost break out in hives when people say, oh yeah, we have mold, but my husband's handy. We're gonna, we can handle it. And I'm like, no, don't touch it. Don't disrupt. So you can answer that if you want, but I want to also talk about mold inspections because and air quality inspections, because there is I don't know, there's a lot of
There's difference.
misunderstanding. There's different
Yeah.
approaches, and somebody in this camp says that's the way to do it, and that's, there's a lot, I think, a lot of confusion around, well, how do I even know if I got an inspection, if it was a good, thorough inspection?
Yeah. It's a great question, right? So unfortunately, in our industry, it's very difficult to determine the difference between the two on a phone call many times too,
Sure.
right? And for your audience, especially, it's so important to make sure you're asking the right questions. Actually, we have a guide that I'll give you where it's like 10 questions on how to interview a remediation company and an inspection company. I'll make sure I send that over to you guys.
Awesome. And do you feel like they should be two separate companies?
Oh, 100%.
Yes,
Yes,
because you're
yes.
from Jersey. That's
Yeah.
why.
Yeah. It's actually now it's like 8 states that I think 6 or 8 states that they have to be separate. It's the law.
I think it should be. I really
It should
do.
be. Yeah, yeah. So look, there's air quality tests and inspections, and then there's a actual deep dive assessment of the home, and they're very, very different things, right? So the way that I look at air quality inspections is if somebody's going to come out to your home and tell you they'll be there for like an hour to 2 hours, and they walk in, they do this very visual, oh yeah, look around, okay, not really seeing much, everything is dry here. I'm going to go ahead and just take a bunch of air samples in your home. That will tell us there's a problem. You should ask them to leave immediately.
Okay.
Because they're not actually adding any value in the process, right?
Okay.
Now, a thorough assessment and inspection should be a full top to bottom assessment of the home. They should be on site 4 to 7 hours or more, depending on the size of the property. And they're not just looking in the general living areas of the home, but they're checking the exterior of the house. They're in the attic spaces. They're in the basement, the crawl space. They're opening up your air handler unit. They're looking in your ducts. They're checking for active moisture, inactive moisture. I mean, this process is a very thorough assessment of the home, because here's a little secret, okay? Don't tell anybody
I'm
this,
ready.
but here's a secret. Are you ready? Every single home has mold.
Sure.
Every home, okay?
Yeah.
And so if somebody comes into your house and tells you you have no mold, then they don't know what they're doing. Now, to unpack that a little bit more.
It's
there are
not
degrees
all
of it.
detrimental to your health.
Exactly, right? And so what you really need to understand is that there are always going to be sources. It's about prioritizing source in the home, right? And so there are going to be things that should be treated as a 5 alarm fire, urgent, urgent, urgent. And then there are going to be things that, hey, look, this is kind of normal. This is settlement. This is part of the acclimate of the home, and you don't need to worry about it. But if you have somebody that's just focused on utilizing one tool to diagnose your whole home, i.e. air samples, that's like going to a doctor with a broken arm and them telling you, you know what, I have a strep test I can give you. Well, it's a medical test, but
Right.
you need an X-ray, right? So at the end of the day, it's about making sure that they're really thoroughly looking and using a breadth of different test types that are applicable to what they're finding in the home.
I'm so glad you said that. And I built the home I'm in, it'll be, oh, wow, see, time's flying, almost 8 years ago now.
Oh, wow.
And not that long after I built the home, I had some visible mold. And because I'm me and I'm still in my, trying to get rid of all my mycotoxins that are now, they don't make me sick anymore, but I'd like them gone. I dug in and, got a really great inspector. And so that's why I'm really glad that you said every home has mold. I did, in fact, have mold in my home. None of it were the strains of mycotoxins that I'm dealing with. None of them were actually even harmful. But because I didn't want to take a chance, for me, it was worth testing. Most people who feel well aren't going to, test a pretty new home. And we've talked about, I've done some interviews on why new homes, you mentioned construction process.
Yeah.
New homes are definitely not off of the list of, likely culprits for sure.
Yeah.
But that is where having an inspection that you can trust, right, is really, really helpful.
Yeah.
And I'll add from my end for listeners that, if whether they've already done toxin testing or not, if you haven't and you're considering, oh my gosh, is this part of the problem? It is important to compare, what is in your body
Oh yeah.
versus what's in the home, because we are always going to find some stuff in the home.
100%. Actually, part of the process, because there's I think a lot of times people, when we talk to them on the phone, they're expecting to see black mold crawling up the walls,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
And so you alluded to this a little bit earlier of just like, what is it? Where is it? Right.
Well, you wouldn't need a job if that's
yeah,
everything that was making people sick, right? Like
exactly.
we, for those of us that are blessed with vision, we could do that ourselves.
Right, exactly. But here's the thing with mold,
Yeah.
it tends to grow in a variety of other colors, right? And
Yes.
so black mold definitely has the best publicist without a doubt. Okay.
For sure.
Whoever they hired, they're doing a great job, but it's so noticeable.
Yeah.
But it's not the only mold type that can impact us either. And a lot of the times it's gray, it's dust-like. It actually grows in sometimes pink, blues, and greens,
Yep.
right? But here's the thing. It's not usually on the surfaces in our room,
Right.
right? It's hidden.
Yeah.
And so when I talk to people on the phone and they call and they say, hey, I spoke with my practitioner and I've got these mycotoxins in my body, right?
Mhm.
And I'm looking at my house, Corey, and I don't see anything. And I go, okay, well, what are you looking for? Well, there's no black mold anywhere.
Yeah.
There's the problem. The secret to finding mold in your home is to not look for mold in your home.
Right.
Okay. That is the secret. Okay. So instead, you need to look for the 5 signs of water damage in the home. And when you do that, that's when you're going to find these issues that we're talking about. And so it's bubbling, it's buckling and separating of the building materials, it's cracking and peeling, it's staining, and it's rust and efflorescence. And if you look for that, that is the beginning of where mold will grow, even if it's dry now, right? Even if there's no active moisture, as we all know, water is the evolution of life. So it starts like a flame to a fire right there. And then even after it's dry, the mold is going to stay within that spot. So instead of going through the home and looking for mold, these are the little footprints water will leave behind and clues, and that tends to be the tip of the iceberg.
I love that thank you for sharing those signs with us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it circles back to what you said earlier about, it's usually previous water damage, which our brains say like, oh, that's old, it's fine, right? I mean, anybody who's, bought a home or lived in an apartment, lived in more than one place.
Yeah.
Just think of like every time you look under a sink, right? Like we
Exactly.
discount, like how common is that to see water damage under a sink that people discount, like, oh, that's old, must have had a leak at some point. So I
But
love.
it's actually a problem.
Yeah.
And being us Jersey folks, right? Were you were already left, but Sandy, which
I'm old.
I'm sure.
Yeah,
but
I was
you were
gone,
in Florida
yeah.
you were gone. I was on the ground in Sandy when it happened. I was all down the shore helping at houses. And what's really interesting is we didn't get super busy from Sandy until about 3 or 4 years later.
Yeah.
The reason being is because you had a lot of disaster crews come in and try and help people as quickly as they could. People were moving so fast, or homeowners couldn't get help.
Yeah.
And so what they were doing is they were just drying out as best they could and then painting over things. And you'd walk into these houses and think there's no problem just
Looks
looking at it.
pretty. Yeah.
Right. But then the symptoms start coming because everything is dry at this point, but the mold is still back behind these walls now. And as you mentioned before, it doesn't stay where it is. It produces three main byproducts. It produces spores, gases called MVOCs, and toxins called mycotoxins. And each one of these can have different impacts on our health. And so as these things move out into the general living areas of the home and we start to breathe them in, we start to see that impact. But yeah, if you know, you may see some signs of visual mold, but the real key there is looking for those water footprints.
Such gold. Like I feel like listeners already have gotten so much from this, especially because you offer those resources of how to, it is a big challenge, I think, just like, anything that kind of gains some recognition, then you get some charlatans and you get sometimes even people with good intentions that just don't have the training to do things the right way.
Yeah,
And so yeah.
that's why I think making sure you're asking the right questions, because that's really a great point that you brought that up. So a lot of certifications, and even state licenses, it's 1 week course, and then you get a
That's
license.
crazy.
1 week,
It's
and
such a
boom.
complicated thing.
And it is so complicated, right? And so you have to be very wary. I always say so when people call in, we have what we call empowerment coaches. They before we even get anybody to work with us, they have to speak to somebody first to make sure that they're at the right point in the journey. Otherwise, we push them to resources before, right? And the ones that ask the most questions are always the ones that are going to be safest through this process, right?
Yeah.
And we like when people ask those questions because it's important. So many times I hear people that say, I brought this person in, I spent all this money, they didn't find anything, but my practitioner is telling me there's still a problem. We come in and there's multiple issues in the house, right?
Yeah, it's
And
sad.
so it's sad, right? So there are tools to help. I think talking through this a little bit more will really help the listeners. So visually looking for those 5 signs is awesome, right? Okay, but then what? So maybe I'm seeing a few of them here or there, right? You kind of have 2 paths. Path 1, you go right to an inspection where you can use those resources that I mentioned before to help interview. Or path 2, if you really want to understand, you know what, I'm not really seeing anything, I don't think this is that big of a deal, you can screen your home. You can screen test your house to understand if there's a problem within the environment or not. And so are you familiar with like ERMI, ERMI, or the
I
dust
am.
test? You
Yep.
are. Okay, great.
Mhm.
So the tool was created by the EPA when they performed a healthy home survey of 1,100 houses. Okay, half of those homes, when surveyed, had a known history of water damage and mold, and the other half did not. And so what they came out with was a list of 36 mold species that are commonly found inside these different types of houses. And then they looked at the geometric mean of each of those species to determine what was considered normal in them. And then based off of the elevations over normal, they're able to give you a score that determines and plots you against the other homes in the study. So it's not going to tell you where the mold is. It's not going to tell you how long it's been there, any of that type of stuff, right? But it is a good baseline to help understand whether or not there's a source of there could be sources within the home. Now, when ERMI first came out, as you know, it was really grasped by the wellness and medical community.
Yep.
And there's been a lot of misinterpretations of it, right? So you have to really understand how to read it. That's why we created the dust test. And so this automatically actually crosses the data from your home with other inspections we perform. And then we talk you through your results. And something you said earlier, which is really important, we correlate what's in your body to what's in your home, right? Because what we can see, if you have mycotoxins in your body, even if you're doing organic acid testing, or if you're doing some IgE testing or IgG testing, there's going to be a lot of correlation between what's in the home and what's in the body that can help tie things back together. And for me, what I always think is, hey, if we're seeing enough of these correlations here,
Yeah.
there's likely something going on in the home that's current. Because, yeah, you definitely had an exposure before. There's no doubt we all have.
We all have. Sure.
Right?
Sure.
But there's enough correlation, kind of like what you went through, right? You tested your home. There wasn't a correlation in your clinicals to your environment, but you didn't want to take a chance. You handled it anyways.
Sure.
Right? But for many of the clients that we see that go through the process of, all right, you know what? I'm going to start with the dust test. I'm going to see what's in my home and what's in my body. And there's kind of your insurance policy, if you will. There's a guarantee that you're going to have something that's going to be found there, right?
Yeah.
And then, you know, getting a good inspection from there to verify and figure out where those sources are located.
Which I think is so important. And another approach, depending on, and I want to talk about the individual journey, right? Because we all, but one of the other things people can do, even if just even the whole idea of finding a good inspector or you know, testing themselves, like if they're not ready for that, but they really want to know, sometimes exposure is from work, school, like it's not always 100% the home.
Yeah.
I'll have other family members tested because that's the funky thing about it, is that you may have, you know, 5 people living in a home, you know, one might be really sick, some may have completely different kind of symptoms that they've either normalized or they don't even think of as related. Like it just can express so differently in all of us. And so I have a client that I was really, really curious, and what they wanted to do as first step was I tested the husband as well. And they had identical through the roof mycotoxin profiles. And it was like, it's your home. This is not from childhood. They didn't grow up in the same house. You know? And so, you know, you can get crafty, and which brings me to what I really, really want to make sure we do talk about is the journey, right? And honoring where each of us are in our wellness journey, in our healing process, in our sometimes investigation of what's going on.
Everybody's different, down to not just like where we're at even in our journey of healing, but even just peeling it back even further than that. Are you a homeowner or are you a renter?
Right.
I mean, you're going to have 2 completely different goals.
Yeah.
It's just, it is, and it's not always necessarily the same path that you have to go down when you're in that scenario. You know, as somebody who rented before I bought my first home, you know, I went a little bit crazy. I'd probably look at like 100 places before I lived there. But even
I'll live wherever you say is okay.
there you go. Good idea.
I'll follow you.
But here's the thing, like the last place I was in, even after going through and everything looked great, I had a leak. Like nobody's like, you know, impervious to any of this stuff.
Sure.
And the really kind of difficult part, like I sold myself to this homeowner. I was like, hey, I'll keep this place so great for you. If there's water, I'll handle it immediately. I'm in the biz, right? And he was like, yeah, this is great. But then, of course, something happened. And it shifted from we're great friends to I want this done right. And he did it.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
And the problem is that as a renter, you only have so much control.
Right.
And when you really look at, say you do the dust test and you get these results back and it's showing that there's a problem, you have to look at your relationship with the landlord if you're a renter, because the last thing you want to do is, you've already spent a couple $100 on the test, is you don't want to put more resource, more time, more energy into this process if it's going to be met with resistance.
Yeah.
And then you're in a scenario where, unfortunately, they're not doing things right. You're living in the place.
Yeah.
Even if it's not done under malice, even if it's just done with, I'm going to go with the route that my insurance company says to go and do, or my friend who's a plumber says to do, right?
Yep.
That doesn't correlate exactly, right?
Yeah. It's
so
tough.
it's tough. It's really tough. And when you're talking with people, like at the dust test, when we help align a lot of these things together for people, the question always comes at the end of this is, hey, what is your living situation? Do you like it here? If you're a renter and you love it, and you have a great relationship with your landlord, great. Maybe inspection does make sense. Maybe you don't want to uproot your family. You want to stay there. You see yourself here for a while. That is awesome. That makes sense, right? But if your landlord is not a nice person and they're going to be very difficult, then maybe it's better serving you to find a way out of your lease and move on and put that energy, that focus, because if you're dealing with other things, you're dealing with other health concerns, which I know a lot of listeners are, the stress from that
driving symptoms. Yeah. It's bad.
It's going to flare it all up.
Yeah. And often, one of the typical across the board symptoms, no matter what kind of autoimmunity or chronic illness, is fatigue anyway. And so,
add this in, and that's
it can be overwhelming. And I want to dispel some myths, because
let's do it.
Talking about that idea, and sometimes the best choice is to move. Like that sometimes is the choice that is the all around best choice. But for so many years, those of us in this wellness space have heard and been taught and told, and then pass that information along to people. You have to leave everything. Like, you cannot take your, if you did move, or even if you are doing a professional remediation, that it's all got to go. You can't keep your clothes, your books, your anything, or you're just gonna stay sick.
Yeah. I think for a long time, Julie, that was an approach that a lot of people in the industry used, right? More of a, let's make sure that we're trying to eliminate everything. But what we've seen now is something very different. And if you really think about it, it's never, let's just think about how clothes are made and where they're made. Like, they're not made in a hospital clean room.
Let's not.
Let's not.
I got Pigpen again in my note.
But like they're many of them are made in these factories that are leaking, right? And then they're put in these shipping containers that are gross in cardboard boxes, and then they're stored in a facility here before they hit the floor, and they're brand new.
Right.
You don't think those have some sort of mold exposure to them? Right?
Yeah.
So like, it's never really our stuff, right? Now, granted, there's layers to this, and we actually have a guide, the How to Clean Your Stuff guide, that I'll send to you as well, that people can get. But if you think about the fact of how mold works, again, back to what you said earlier, if it stayed under the sink, we would not be talking right now.
Right.
You need this analogy of a factory. Mold creates a colony, and then it creates byproducts. Well, think of a factory next to a lake. If a factory is next to a lake and is polluting the lake, the government doesn't come in and just shut the factory down. It has to clean the pollutants in the lake, and vice versa, right? Well, in the home, you have little tiny mold factories, and they're creating spores, and they're creating gases called MBOCs, and they're creating chemicals called mycotoxins, and these spread throughout the home. Okay. So what do we need to do? We got to go find those factories, and we got to shut them down. Okay. But then you need to clean. You have to go through that cleaning process, right? And if you've got contents, clothes and couches and books and all these other things that are physically growing mold on them, yes, they should be thrown away.
Sure.
100%.
That's logical.
That's logical, right? Well, we would think so, but the amount of times some people are like, hey,
I
I
love
need
this
this.
thing.
I
Yeah.
love this one thing, but there's mold on it. But how is it going to impact me? Look, it should go, right? But the idea here is if you deal with the home and clean, the majority of people are seeing the results that they need to see from a health perspective, right? And it's not about taking a match to all of our stuff and moving and moving
Thank
on,
you.
because back to what we said earlier, every home has something. So
Right.
it's about having the right team around you and making sure you're getting the sources handled. You need the right practitioner. You need somebody like yourself who's going to help coach them through doing the right things for the body. And just like we're talking now, we're another spoke in that wheel on the assessment side of the property. We need to make sure we're finding the problems, we're prioritizing those issues, you're putting the resource towards the right areas that are going to give you the highest return on overall air quality in the home. And if you take the right path that way, we don't need to throw all of our stuff away.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
Right?
and it goes back to, like I just mentioned, I'm still working on years later. There's still evidence from when I was so sick, my mycotoxins, or somebody might look at a test I did, if I did one this week and be like, oh my gosh, but I feel great. There is no perfect, right? Our bodies, and everybody has, it's my professional term. We all have a different tipping point. So
Yes.
somebody may have a really high toxic burden, but they feel great, right? And
Yes.
somebody else might have just one smaller exposure may be enough to tip them into illness. And I think of the home as this extension of us in that sense too, which it goes back to that we don't have to burn it all down. Better is better. It's just everybody has a different. So I love that you help people focus on, hey, this is where your energetic and financial resources are going to serve you the most,
Yeah.
versus this perfect idea of, oh, just start over.
Yeah.
Like,
it's and that is, unfortunately, you go online, you get into some of these groups, and it pains me to see people who already are so financially strained through this
sure.
process,
Yeah.
right? Treatment is not cheap, right? This
Right.
whole process is not cheap. It's extremely draining financially.
Yeah.
And so then you see people who are like, I've done the remediation. I had somebody come out and I put my life savings towards this and I
Right.
still feel terrible. And so now I got to throw everything away, right? And back to this understanding of prioritization, unfortunately, in many of those cases, you had the person come out, they found a problem, but was that the right problem? Right?
Yes.
So then what we're doing is we're going after maybe a lower priority issue that had a high cost. And so
Yeah.
here's the return. The return isn't great as it needs to be versus an area that should have been a higher priority. And maybe it was like a medium or a lower cost, but that would have had such a bigger return on
Right.
how you're being impacted. Like and you mentioned something that I really want to touch on about yourself. And I think it's so important for people to understand the tipping point, because
Yeah.
it's such, I talk about this all the time too. We all deal with different burdens. You have a household of 5 people and one person's really sick and this person is not, and these people maybe, right? We're
Yeah.
all different, right? And we're all going to react different to our environment. But when you work with people like yourself who have the data about the body and you get the right data about the home, you can really make informed decisions properly about getting you down the road, so that this idea of this financial, I got to rip every wall of my house out, I got to throw all my contents away, I got
Yeah.
to start my life over, becomes a lot more manageable. And you can actually progress this in the right direction. While it's still maybe costly to go through all of this, at least we're
Right.
not starting our life from zero and trying to rebuild, and really being focused on getting to the right things that are going to have the biggest return.
Yeah. And I love that approach. It's the same approach we take with health in general, right? Is where can we start getting the wins, right? Like, where's the impact? Because, financial resources may be limited, but even just energetic resources, right? Like you mentioned, stress and the whole thing. So it's like, if
Yeah.
we can start to move the needle, like what's going to move the needle the quickest, even if it's not the home run.
Right.
It's that, like you said, what's going to have the most impact. It's the same
Mhm.
approach we take with the body.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I love that it really carries the kind of the home as the extension of the body
I know.
analogy.
I'm gonna steal that from you.
It just came out of my mouth. You inspired me. So I warned you before we hit record
Yeah.
that I was going to have a hard time keeping to our allotted time, but
Oh,
also
that's fine.
you had mentioned something that is when it comes to mold, it is literally my biggest pet peeve. So I
Mm.
have to ask this question, even if listeners think it's another Julie non sequitur. Um, should you? I'm not going to tee it up and give you my opinion. Should you be using bleach on mold?
No.
Why
No, no,
not?
no,
It
no,
makes
no,
it look
no.
pretty.
It makes it look pretty. So here's the thing with bleach. It doesn't penetrate deep enough. Okay. So first off, this idea of bleach and like this DIY, look,
Just don't
I'm
do
always
it.
down to do DIY like small projects. First off, I'm
Uh-huh.
like the least handy person. So anytime my wife sees me with a hammer, she's like, "What are you doing? What are you doing?" But like the idea of DIY in general, is it you need to make sure you have the right plan so the DIY makes sense, right? It's
Yep.
like unboxing IKEA furniture without instructions. Okay,
Right.
it's going to take you a long time. It's probably not going to come out right. When you look at it in the home, throwing bleach on something, it has a high kill rate. Great, we're killing something. Okay, that seems like it's a good idea, but we're only killing the top layer because the molecules of bleach are not going to penetrate deep enough to get to the growth structures. So go back to that tree outside that we were talking about before. I'm ripping the leaves off a tree. When I walk outside and see that tree again, I didn't kill the tree. I got to
Right.
get down to the roots and unroot it, right?
Yeah.
And so when the way mold works, it plants root-like structures called mycelia. It's got hyphae that are like branches, and then on top of the hyphae sit the spores. Okay. So when we walk up to it and bleach it, the molecules of the bleach will kill what's on the surface. Okay. And then what's left as that bleach chemical evaporates is water. And what does water do? It super
Shoot.
sucks. It sucks right down into what it's
Darn
growing on,
it. Come on,
right?
Corey.
And then, oh, here, you got me on the bleach train, Julie. And then what happens is then now we've essentially dealt with, depending on the type of mold, we could also make it not happy. So molds, 3 byproducts: spores, reproductive; gases, MVOCs, part of digestion; toxins, mycotoxins, part of defense. Okay. So now, boom, right? So we've now made it angry, okay, and it's going to come back, and we've given it a food source, water, okay, to grow back properly. And so you've now created this recipe where we think visually it's made it look pretty for now,
Right.
but we've never actually gotten down to the source of it. And here's the thing about killing something, okay? If you had a skunk in your wall and you said, "Corey, I hear it, I smell it. Can you kill it?" Sure. I come out, I find it, I kill it, but I don't remove it.
Yeah, gross.
Is that smell going to go away?
No.
No, it's going to get worse. So now we're killing mold spores, which just means that those spores can't grow more mold, but it's still allergenic, still has the toxins associated with it. Kind of like a peanut allergy. If somebody eats a peanut off of a tree and then eats a roasted peanut, which can't grow, it's still going to
It's
cause
still
the
a
same.
peanut.
It's still a peanut. So we're still dealing with the mold spore that now is just dead and can't grow more mold, but still can have that reaction
And still
to
make you
us.
sick. Yeah.
Exactly.
And my two like non-technical additional issues with the whole bleach and mold thing is once it's visually gone, people mistakenly think I don't have a problem. So they
Yeah.
stop investigating and dealing. And then B, bleach is not good for you.
Yeah.
Like if you already have a stressed immune system
Yeah.
and you're already compromised, like you don't you don't want to be doing it.
No, you don't want to be doing it. You also got to be careful if you're combining other chemicals of cleaning in the area, right? Because
Yeah.
not a lot of stuff has bleach in it. So some are based with ammonia that can create other types of harmful gases to carry in the environment. And I get it. We've been, the companies that create bleach products have done a really great job, even selling us on the fact that, oh, that's just a little bit of mildew. Go ahead and use this product, right?
Right.
But
Right.
here's the thing, right? Mildew is mold. Mildew and mold are the same thing, right? And
Yeah.
at the end of the day, like if you were to test that and send what is considered mildew to a lab in a
Mhm.
shower, it's going to
Yeah.
come back as a type of mold, right?
Right.
And so, look, there's varying degrees of this, and is that actually the driver to what's going on with your health? Maybe or maybe not. But
Right.
throwing bleach on it is not the right way to handle that type of situation. There's other more natural based products that you can clean with, right? Thyme oil is a huge antifungal and it doesn't have this like crazy kill rate. So there are things that you can use. A lot of the more natural green cleaning products that exist out there right now
Mhm.
are a lot better to surface clean with. If you're seeing, hey, maybe I have some buildup in my grout in my shower and I just want to kind of clean because water sits there,
Sure.
right? Fine. But please don't use bleach. If there's
Thank you,
anything you take
Corey.
away from this call, don't use bleach.
So we are at, and that could have been it, we're at
Yeah.
that point
Yeah.
where I ask you for one step that listeners can take starting today. And it doesn't even have to be air quality related. Anything you want to share with us that we should all be doing or can be incorporating in to support health.
Yeah. So I am going to lead on the air quality side because I think it's so important. We take
That's why
20.
you're here.
That's why I'm here. We take 20. Here's just an imagination. You take 20,000 breaths a day. Okay. And I listened to a show you did recently where you talked a lot about like diet and how diet tends to be this kind of low hanging fruit that we can change quickly and fast.
Right.
And a lot of times that's where we start, but we can also start with giving our home a bit of a diet, right?
Yes.
And that means let's keep clutter down to a minimum as much as we can, right? I talked a little bit about this before of this, all these things that get into the air, not just mold spores, but you've got dust mites, and our dust is like a soup of contaminants. It's hairs, it's particles, and skins. You don't want to breathe this stuff in, okay? So we want to keep dust to a minimum. So making sure we don't have a lot of areas where dust can form easily and build up. And so decluttering, when you're cleaning your home, having a regular cleaning regimen, you're vacuuming with HEPA filtered vacuums is really important. And when you're dusting with items that don't re-aerosolize. So don't go around with one of those feather dusters of your home. That's just moving it all around, right? You want to make sure that you're getting stuff that's trapping. And then the final thing that I'll say to like just overall reduction on exposure is air purification is really important, right? And we don't drink unfiltered water.
Right.
And our homes are systems, right? And there's always something and it's closed air that's looping. So bringing in air filtration is important too, making sure that it's a minimum HEPA filter base, but there's a lot of really great brands out there from Air Doctor to Healthway to IQ Air to Austin Air that are all really great products that you can bring in.
Amazing. Amazing. I knew your one thing was going to be, but air quality is the
Air
one
quality
thing.
is one thing.
But I love that it is just even the focusing, first of all, notice, and then, keeping the clutter down is huge. It really is. And so, and then all of those other things that we can be doing on a regular basis are so, so important. Where is, for people that aren't going to check the links in the show notes, where is the best place to find you or some of your resources?
Yeah. So yesweinspect.com is the best place to find anything about us. We have resources on there. We've got a ton of blogs that you can check through and free guides and all of the fun things. And then if you're on Instagram, @MoldFinders is my business partner's name is Brian Carr. He runs our Instagram account. He is constantly putting out tips and tricks for the house. So that's another really great one. And then if you're interested in the dust test, you can find it on yesweinspect.com, but the dusttest.com is really another place to get that screening tool directly too.
Amazing.
Yeah, check the show notes out because I'm going to give Julie a bunch of really great things to put in the links below.
Absolutely. Corey, thank you so much. Listeners, seriously, play this 3, 4, 5 times. There's so much packed in this episode. We so appreciate you sharing your expertise and your clear caring with us. Really makes a huge difference.
Thank you so much.
For everyone listening, remember you can get those show notes and transcripts by visiting inspiredliving.show. Hope you had a great time and enjoyed this episode as much as I did. I'll see you next week.
Thank you for listening to Julie Michelson's Inspired Living with Autoimmunity. Did you enjoy this episode? Please like, share, and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. If you'd like to get a transcript of this and every other episode, just head on over to inspiredliving.show or click on the link in this episode's description. There, you can also find everything we discussed in this episode, including links and information about our guest. You can even send in your questions to be answered by Julie in a future episode. That's inspiredliving.show. Until next time, this is Julie Michelson's Inspired Living with Autoimmunity podcast, helping you take your power back.